Starting things off at number 10, we have a sound that has been recorded by different people in different countries all over the world. The sound seems to be coming from the sky and can last seconds or minutes, but the one thing they all have in common is just how creepy they are. Take a little listen. What is that? What is going on there? That's a whole lot of nope right there. The noises have been reported every single year since 2008. There are a number of theories ranging from it being a sign of the apocalypse, an alien invasion, or even a government technique to control the weather. Some scientists say that it's being caused by solar flares reacting with the atmosphere or coming from deep within the planet's core. Moving on to number 9 now, we're going out into deep dark space to hear the creepy sounds of Saturn. The sound you're about to hear was recorded by the Cassini spacecraft back in 2002. It came from the planet's magnetic field over the polar regions. The frequency was so high that they had to shift it down a lot so that you can actually hear it. Let's listen. Wow, scientists have explained this sound as natural radio waves passing along the magnetic field lines of Saturn, but yeah, I don't really care if it's explainable, to be honest. It's really creepy. Alright, next up at number 8 now, we have the SpongeBob theme. Now I know what you guys are thinking. How is that scary? You have to be joking. It sounds like this.
Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? SpongeBob SquarePants!
Okay. But now guys, listen to this. This is exactly the same, but slowed down 800%. I don't know who discovered that, I don't know why they did it, but I wish they didn't. I know a lot of things sound creepier when they're slowed down, but this has to be the biggest one I've heard so far. Ugh. Well guys, that is pretty much as light as we're going to get for this video, I'm afraid, so let's just press on to our number 7 now with the Aztec death whistles. When archaeologists found these small skull-shaped objects in the ancient Aztec temple, they weren't really sure what they were at first. Some said it was a toy or just an ordinary carving. It wasn't until 15 years later that one of them had the thought of blowing into it. It turned out to be a whistle. The noise that came out sounded a lot like a human scream, and some people think it was used before battle or for ceremonies such as human sacrifice. And with that lovely thought in mind, let's take a listen to the death whistle. Creepy stuff. Alright, next up now at number 6, we have the bloop. In 1997, scientists were using deep sea microphones to capture sound off the coast of South America. What they heard though, and what you're about to hear, baffled them. They said it could not have been made by a volcano or an underwater earthquake and was far louder than even the noise a blue whale makes. It was almost inconceivably loud and incredibly mysterious. These days, scientists have put forward the explanation that it's the sound of ice sheets cracking that reverberates throughout the whole ocean, but some people still hold on to the idea that the bloop came from a deep sea creature of unimaginable proportions. I personally don't think so, but mainly because I don't want it to be true. Alright, coming in at number 5 now, we have the castrato. Now during the Middle Ages in Europe, some choir leaders wanted their star male choir boys to keep their high-pitched voices forever and not have them lowered by puberty. They did this by castrating the boy, removing the testicles, which then left them with their high-pitched boy voice forever. They were then known as castrato. Now this practice was thankfully banned by the end of the 19th century, but one surviving recording of a real castrato has survived. This is that recording. This is Cavalier Morisetti, and some say you can even hear the sadness in his voice. Now apparently, some people used to think that was beautiful. That's not the word that I would use. Personally, I'd call it spooky. Yeah, and I hope I never hear that again. Okay, moving on to number 4 now, we have Operation Wandering Soul. During the Vietnam War, the US government learned about the belief of many Vietnamese that their dead must be buried in their homeland or their soul will wander through hell for eternity. In order to help them fight the Viet Cong, they actually made recordings of voices pretending to be dead soldiers trapped in hell, warning their comrades to flee from the war or face the same fate as them. Does that sound terrifying to you? That's because it is. Take a listen. Obviously, I'm not even a Viet Cong soldier, and that makes me want to go home and like huddle into a ball on my bed and cry my little eyes out. Yeah, I'm tough. And now at number 3, we have the oldest surviving recording of a human voice. Even that sentence is pretty creepy. What you're about to hear is a man called Edward Leon Scott recording himself singing using his invention, the phonautograph. It's from 1860. Take a listen. That is 100% nightmare fuel. It's not even the crackling noise or how old it is that makes it creepy for me, it's the song itself. It sounds like a funeral march. It's a cool piece of history, but a very, very creepy piece of history. Okay, moving swiftly on to number 2 now, things aren't getting any more pleasant as we've got a schizophrenic simulation. What you're about to hear is a recording that is supposed to recreate the voices that people with schizophrenia hear in their heads, whispering and telling them to do all kinds of bad things. That honestly makes me feel so bad for people with schizophrenia, but hopefully it will help bring awareness to that illness. For me, the scariest part was thinking, what if I paused the video, but the voices didn't stop? Okay, finally now at number 1, we have the exorcism of Anneliese Michel. Now this is apparently the sound recording of the exorcism of a German girl called Anneliese Michel who was supposedly possessed by 6 demons and Catholic priests trying to exorcise them out of her. They ultimately failed and Anneliese died in 1976 after not being able to eat. This was actually the inspiration for the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Now whether or not you believe in this kind of thing, it is undeniably scary. So if you do want to skip it, hit this right up here and it will skip it to the next bit. You can join us at the end. But for those of you who are still with us, let's take a listen. No. Now that video of this recording actually has 37 million views and I imagine most people just listen to it once and then try and move on with their lives. Scary, scary stuff.
So first at number 10 is The Drowning. This clip was recorded by Brendan Cook and Barbara McBeath from the Ghost Investigator Society. It was recorded in an empty room in an abandoned mental hospital in Ogden, Utah. The recording I'm showing is something Cook said is the oddest recording that the pair has ever recorded. So it sounds like a child is saying, "I can't breathe," over and over. Then there are voices in and out, then water thrashing. That continues for a while until there is a thud, and then silence. The pair of investigators claim that there were no children present and that there has been no running water in the facility for almost 20 years. The only water in the building is in the building's basement where there is an old well. Listen for yourself. Number 9 is the table incident. So Kimberly Rodney on YouTube heard odd knocking noises coming from a table in her bedroom. So she set up a table recorder to see if she could pick anything up. She heard 5 different voices on the EVP after analyzing it. She left the tape recorder alone in her room during these recordings. The first 4 recordings were more muffled and had to be turned up to be heard, but the 5th one was something she classified as a Class A recording. Listen out for "Back to Work with Me" and see if that's what you hear. She said when she heard it, she jumped a mile, took off her headphones, and stopped analyzing the tape. It caught her so off guard she stopped recording for things for a year and a half. And number 8 is a child. So this clip is from YouTube user Jojo31978. I will now be calling her Jojo from now on. She was getting her voice recorder ready to see if she could capture some EVP when her 8-year-old son asked her how it worked. Jojo asked him to say something into it after she pressed record, that way she could show him. He said, "I love Mum" into it, but when she played it back, she heard another child's voice before her son's. Have a listen.
I love Mum. I love Mum.
Jojo is pretty sure the dissonant voice says, "Call Poppy." Jojo finds this significant since the reason she got the recorder out was to see if her dad would leave a message. Both she and her sister have lost children, so Jojo says she is sure it is one of them on the recording, maybe telling her to reach out to her dad. At number 7, we have high-pitched mystery sound. So this sound is now known as the Forest Grove sound because it happened exclusively in Forest Grove, Oregon. It happened only during February of 2016, but it was so annoying that about 200 calls were made to the Forest Grove Police Department about it.
The truth is out there, and whatever it sure is loud and baffling. Neil Karlinski, ABC News, Seattle.
So to you, does it sound like a steam whistle, a flute played off pitch, or car brakes? Whatever it was, no one knows. A physics professor named Andrew Dawes mapped out where noise was heard, but any results were inconclusive. So no one has any solid facts about what was doing this, and it just ended up stopping. It wasn't wildlife, it wasn't water or gas leak, there was a haunted house later that year based on the noise, but the mystery isn't solved. The haunted house, by the way, was called Aliens in the Grove, so maybe that's what was happening? At number 6, a disembodied ghost voice. So this was posted in March of 2019. Ghost Hunt Weekend says they believe it's a man's voice saying either EVP or EV. It was recorded at the Thomas House Hotel from inside the Grand Seance Room. A woman asks, "Would you do that please? Would you tell me your name?" And then some raspy audio comes through. That's what Ghost Hunt Weekends thinks is a man voice saying EVP or EV. Now, if it was saying EV, I'm guessing the voice may be looking for someone named Evie, a wife, mother, sister, or child perhaps. But if it's saying EVP, I bet it is some ghost whispering to another one to stay quiet so they don't get caught. You know, like, shh, it's EVP type thing. Have a listen for yourself.
Do that, please. Would you tell me your name? Would you tell me your name? Would you tell me your name?
At number 5 is Whispers by the Morgue. So, the American Paranormal Research Association worked in partnership with the Los Angeles Paranormal Association. They were at Linda Vista Community Hospital. They collected an EVP in the basement hallway that led to the morgue. On the recording, one investigator asked, "How are you associated with the hospital?" And in response, they heard this.
How are you associated with the hospital?
Now, listen again and see if you can hear what the investigators thought they heard. We're not dead.
How are you associated with the hospital?
So, if these are not ghosts of the dead, why are they hanging out at the morgue? Or are these spirits that have passed that are in denial? Or are they playing a joke? I obviously don't know. These are audio recordings that can't be explained, so I can't really tell you, can I? But see what you hear and whatever you can make of it. On to number 4, Whispers from Roxy. So this EVP was captured during a paranormal investigation at a squash club in Swinton, United Kingdom. It was originally a movie theater called Roxy Cinema that shut its doors unexpectedly in 1965. It was being investigated because the squash club's manager reported seeing a shadow ghost and some bottles moving by themselves. Here's the EVP. The investigative team said they heard, "I'm one down here," but others have suggested that the clip says, "I'm not done here." So listen again. Which do you think it is? Number 3 is televised scream. So EVP are captured by paranormal investigative teams, and that includes the Ghost Adventures crew. During season 17, episode 4, Tintic Mining District, they shared this EVP that they caught.
What name are you connected to? Who brought you here?
Zach's prompting questions were 1. What name are you connected to? And 2. Who brought you here? Zach says there is a voice that responds, Zach Baggins, in response to his first question. But the really chilling audio is the response to the second question.
Who brought you here?
Dude, what the? That's not human at all.
Do you hear that? That's some sort of demonic or ghastly shrill scream. So whatever that thing was that made that noise, it's not happy. Another demonic sound is at number 2, demon sounds. So this sound was posted by Don Garvey on YouTube. He wrote that it comes from paranormal investigators in Philadelphia. So apparently the backstory is a homeowner was complaining of noises coming from their basement in the middle of the night. The paranormal investigative team put a digital audio recorder in the basement to see if they could pick up anything. The first 3 days there was nothing out of the ordinary. But then on the 4th night they caught this at 3:12 a.m. Garvey said in the original video that the audio was amplified 20 times, but nothing else was done to the audio. Garvey posted this back in November of 2007, just so you know. But let's go on to our last one. Number 1 is Ghost Fight. For this one, I invite you to have a listen and see what you can hear for yourself. Listen out for clock ticking, sounds of fighting, screaming, a man's voice, a voice saying hello baby, and more screaming. Now that you have heard it, I'll give you more details. This clip was captured by the Central New York Ghost Hunters back in 2007. They did an overnight investigation at an old hotel. The hotel apparently had a history of nefarious activity, which may be why the EVP is the way it is. Everyone on hotel staff and the ghost hunters present the night of the recording were female, but listen out for the distinctly male-sounding voice in the recording. They recorded it in a stairwell below an empty floor where they had been hearing sounds, so maybe those sounds they had been hearing were just the sounds of the ghosts and they caught it more amplified on the EVP. Maybe? I don't know.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Wandering Soul. The Wandering Soul, sometimes referred to as Ghost Tape Number 10, is the sounds that were played loud on speakers outside of US bases during the Vietnam War. The main goal was to scare away and taunt the enemies. The tape starts off playing funeral music and sounds of wailing ghosts. Then you can hear a bunch of eerie voices. When translated to English, the voices are saying things like, "Daddy, Daddy, come home with me, come home, Daddy." And the dad replies with, "But my body is gone, I am dead." Basically, it's a Vietnamese belief that if the dead aren't buried in their homeland, then their souls will wander around in pain and suffering. So this tape was supposed to be the voice of their dead comrades wandering around.
Còn đâu vẫn lần nào nữa. Tôi đã chết rồi mà con đâu ở.
Moving on to number 9, we have the Night Stalker. The Night Stalker was a serial killer who murdered at least 10 people in Southern California from 1979 to 1986. He also assaulted around 50 women in Northern California. The identity of this criminal is now known, but back in the day, police didn't know who he was. As a result, he was named one of the worst and most prolific unapprehended serial offenders in history. So during his reign of terror, the Night Stalker would leave disturbing messages on his victims' answering machines. One recording in particular will send shivers down your spine. The recording starts off with sounds of heavy breathing. Then in a creepy whisper, the Night Stalker says, "I'm going to kill you," over and over again. In our 8th spot, we have the domestic abuse. This next recording is a pretty popular one. It features a woman in an abusive relationship calling the police to report it. However, she disguises her plea for help as if she's ordering pizza. The operator is confused at first, but eventually clues in that this woman is calling for help. He asks her if there's someone in the room with her and if there are any weapons in the house. The call ends with the operator asking her if she can stay on the line. She says no, see you soon, then hangs up. This recording is very scary, just knowing the situation that the woman was in, and you can hear the panic in her voice as she tries to remain calm. This recording was actually used in a Super Bowl commercial as a PSA for domestic abuse.
Order a pizza for delivery.
Ma'am, you've reached 911. This is an emergency line.
Large with half pepperoni, half mushroom.
You know you've called 911. This is an emergency
Do you
line.
know how long it'll be?
Okay, ma'am, is everything okay over there? Do you have an emergency or not?
Yes.
Coming in at number 7, we have Jonestown. On November 8th, 1978, 900 people died in a mass murder-suicide at the order of cult leader Jim Jones. Jim Jones was a reverend and leader of an American cult in the Guyanese jungle. On that day, he convinced his loyal followers to kill themselves and their children by drinking cyanide-laced punch. It's said that some drank it willingly, while others had it forced upon them. Now, there is a 44-minute long conversation of these events. You hear Jones giving a big speech and people applauding him. He says things like, "We are not committing suicide, it's a revolutionary act." You can hear babies and children screaming and crying as he instructs the parents on how to commit the act. You can hear others saying no and a woman saying that she's not ready to die. Then, when everyone has passed away, all you hear is silence as the background music still eerily plays.
All we're doing is laying down our life. We're not letting them take our life. We're laying down our life. We're taking their lives. We just want peace.
Making our way down the list, number 6, we have The Exorcism. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel is a pretty famous one. Anneliese was a German Catholic woman who was said to have been possessed by 5 different demons. That's right, not just 1, 5. She underwent 67 exorcisms, most of them lasting for up to 4 hours. She claimed that she saw the face of the devil and could hear demons whispering in her ears. This recording was taken during one of Anneliese's exorcisms. It's terrifying. You can hear her screaming and yelling in pain as they're performing it. On top of that, her voice literally sounds demonic. She has this deep, raspy growl thing. It's truly terrifying. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with The Massacre. On February 14th, 2018, a gunman entered Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida and killed 17 individuals and harmed 17 others. The 911 calls from students and even parents of the students were then released. Most of the kids texted their parents and then their parents were the ones making the calls to the police. You can hear how panicked they are for their child's safety. What stuck with me the most is one mom telling her kid that she loves them repeatedly and to play dead if the shooter comes into the room. She says, "You need to dive on the floor and play dead if he starts shooting." She then won't stop telling her child that she loves them. I just can't imagine how scared those parents and students must have been.
I love you, it's Mom. God, Lord, Lord God. Lord God.
Is it the police?
No, it's not the police. It's okay. It's okay. Oh my God, there's
Police.
Please.
They said put your hands up.
I love you. I love you. It's going to be fine. Can you hide somewhere? Can you play dead?
Yes.
If he shoots, you need to fake dead. If he shoots, fake dead.
Moving on to number 4, we have The Emergency. There's nothing scarier than witnessing something tragic at such a young age. That would be carried with you throughout your entire life. Well, sadly, an 8-year-old girl witnessed both her mom and dad get shot. Her 911 call to the police was then recorded and uploaded online. In the call, she says that her mom is still breathing, but her dad is not. She then says her dad is dead. You can hear the panic in her voice. She tries calling for her mom multiple times to get her home address for the operator. She begs them to come fast, saying that her mom's almost dead. That is absolutely terrifying, and no one should ever have to witness that, especially not a kid.
911, what's the problem?
My mommy's in the basement, and I need emergency, and I need, hello?
Where at? Let me speak to your mom.
No, she's almost dead. Mommy! Where are we at? Tell me, I got the police on the phone. Tell me!
In our third spot, we have the car accident. This is one recording that I honestly wish I could erase completely from my memory. So it's a recorded 911 call by a man who's driving a car in which his accelerator is stuck. In the car was his 3 other family members. He is telling the 911 operator his location and that he can't use his brakes. He then approaches the intersection, and that's when they get into a fatal car crash. The last couple of seconds of this call are so sad. You can hear him say, "Hold on guys, pray, pray, pray." And then his wife screams and you can hear the car smash against something. That was the last moments of their lives.
We're approaching the intersection.
Okay.
We're approaching the intersection. Hold on. Pray, pray.
Okay.
Oh, shoot. Oh.
Okay. Hello?
In our second spot, we have the bear attack. Honestly, I was not mentally prepared to hear this recording. On October 6, 2003, Timothy Treadwell and his girlfriend Amy Huonard were attacked and killed by a bear while out camping. Timothy wasn't a novice camper. He had camped out in several Alaskan parks, but this time it turned out to be deadly. In the middle of the night, a bear wandered into their campsite and attacked them. In the recording, you can hear Timothy screaming and panicking as the bear attacks him. You can also hear the bear growling and grunting as he attacks. You can honestly hear the pain in Timothy's screams and how fearful Amy is. Towards the end of the recording, you can even hear Timothy being dragged away from the campsite by the bear as he screams in pain. Eventually, their remains were found buried by the bear near the campsite. In fact, in a mound of dirt, some fingers and an arm were found sticking out. They both faced an extremely gruesome and slow, painful death that was captured in this recording.
Coming in at number 10, we have Saturn's screaming poles. These sound well and truly spine-chilling. These sounds rival anything a space horror composer could score, and these are natural sounds from Saturn's poles. These were recorded by NASA's Cassini spacecraft in 2002, and they're radio waves that come from Saturn's aurora, so very similar to the light phenomenon at our aurora borealis on Earth. So imagine the swirling green, pinks and yellow lights accompanying these sounds, which have been sped up with a slight frequency adjust so our human ears can hear them. This sound comes from one of my favourite YouTube channels, Space Audio. They were uploaded in March 2015. Now Cassini completed its space mission in 2017, losing contact as it made a suicide dive into the planet's atmosphere on September 15th. Coming in at number 9, we have Earth's hiss. Wait, the Earth hissed as a spacecraft flew by? Yeah, it did. The recording sounds like a huge breathing dragon. Have a listen. How is that anything other than the rise and fall of breath? It kind of sounds like Darth Vader. Apparently this is sound recorded in 1996 from NASA's polar mission. It's a sound of hot ionized particles generated by sunlight crashing into the atmosphere. It creates a sound like the Earth hissing at us, and to be honest, what with climate change and the rising greenhouse gases, I can understand why the Earth may be pissed enough to hiss. This isn't the first hiss heard from planet Earth by the patient ears of NASA. In 2015, a NASA student balloon experiment using infrared microphones picked up the unsettling sounds from 22 miles above the Earth's surface in New Mexico and Arizona. Coming in at number 8, we have music from the dark side of the moon. It was nothing compared to Pink Floyd, it was kind of a medium-pitched wooing isn't everyone's kind of music, but you know what? Each to their own. The astronauts on the Apollo 10 mission passed around the moon, and when they were the farthest side away from Earth, the dark side, they lost all radio contact with ground control and the rest of us Earthlings. As Apollo careered around the moon, they heard some very weird sounds, like really weird sounds. So weird that the astronauts talked about it constantly. The weird sounds were not reported at the time, but they were recorded and received by NASA when the mission returned to Earth. The recordings were then classified, which means that they were being safeguarded from human ears. Why? We're not sure. In 2008, the newly declassified recordings were found, and we can hear the weird woo noises for ourselves. Have a listen.
That music even sounds outer spacey, doesn't it? You hear that? That whistling sound? Yeah.
The astronauts are talking about it constantly, and NASA hasn't really returned to the moon since the 70s, and I'm wondering, you know what? Is it because of these weird noises? Conspiracy. Coming in at number 7, we have the mysterious radio signals from deep space. For the last decade, scientists have been picking up unexplained radio signals they call fast radio bursts from deep space. In fact, on the day I scripted this video, August 7th, 2018, more signals were reported. Now these signals have ranged in frequency, but the most recent are 580 megahertz, that's 200 lower than previously heard. The latest sounds detected come from very far away, possibly billions of light years away. Now the radio signals you're about to hear aren't the most recent, but they are pretty unsettling, especially when the thudding kicks in. Just listen. Okay, and then there's some more. It sounds like maybe the plucking of a string, maybe? Currently, scientists don't know where exactly the sounds are coming from, but they are trying to pinpoint them. Coming into number 6, we have Jupiter's crying lightning. The official term for Jupiter's dissonant space whirs is Jovian whistles. These are descending and ascending sounds created by lightning strikes in the atmosphere. As you may know, Jupiter is a decidedly stormy planet, with its red eye being a giant storm that has raged non-stop for over 350 years. Jupiter, you stormy old babe. But I mean, let's have a listen to these terrifying shrieks. There's kind of like a shwam, shwam sound, and it kind of sounds like something being launched, like shoo, shoo. What is this about? It's the weirdest lightning I've honestly ever heard. I don't think you can actually hear lightning on Earth. Maybe. This sound was recorded by Jupiter's Voyager in the 70s, so they're around 40 years old. Now the planet is likely still screaming in its stormy areas and has been for hundreds of years. Can you even imagine? Coming into number 5, we have Ganymede's ghoulish shrieks. Honestly, I feel like Jupiter's moon Ganymede is trying hard to tell us something here. One of Jupiter's 16 moons, Ganymede, is officially the biggest moon in our solar system with a radius of 2,634 kilometers. This makes her bigger than both Mercury and Pluto, and 2/3 the size of Mars. Hey there, big moon, what you doing? This big moon has its own magnetosphere, which creates some big noises, and they're pretty unsettling. Their sounds were recorded in 1996 by the Galileo spacecraft. The initial approach into the magnosphere is punctuated by strong bursts of noises. Then comes some stranger computer beeping like sounds. Have a little listen. Right? Then through the beeps comes windy sounding whirs, then the whole thing crescendos with beeps interspersed with what sounds like alien cries. Tell me what you think. Terrifying, right? Coming into number 4, we have the screams of a dying star. So it turns out that stars have feelings too, and why shouldn't they? They're much bigger than us, and we're actually kind of like teeny weeny blips, like atoms compared to a star, or even smaller. In 2012, scientists at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center released an artist's impression of a black hole swallowing a screaming star. The real-life star was spotted falling into a huge black hole 3.9 billion light years away in the constellation of Draco. It seems as the stars get sucked in, they release blips of light every 200 seconds, which NASA thinks are like screams. As the star is so far away, we haven't got an actual sound recording that the star made. Scientists say that the frequency of the light, if converted to the sound, would sound like a very low D sharp. NASA buffs can predict what this sound is like based on the oscillations that have been observed by smaller matter falling into smaller black holes in our galaxy, the Milky Way. Coming into number 3, we have a creepy singing comet. In 2014, scientists recorded a strange whirring, almost alien-like sounding noises. The clicking, vibrating sounds get even higher in frequency and sound very much like I would imagine an alien trying to communicate with us sounds. The Rosetta orbiter picked up the sounds from the 67P CG comet in August 2014. Have a little listen. So I don't know what is going on, but neither does head researcher Karl-Heinz Gleismeister, whose team was baffled by the noise. The European Space Agency think that the sounds must be coming as a result of a process of oscillation from the comet in orbit. I'm still so confused as to why scientists always give space objects such sterile names like 67P CG. You really missed a trick here. Anyway, what do you make to these sounds and the singing comet? Coming in at number 2, we have the heartbeat of a black hole. So this is a thing apparently, and actually I'm terrified. I thought that black holes were where things went to die, but it turns out that they may have a little soul going on in there. While we can't directly see or hear what black holes are like, we can see and hear what they do to their environment. In 2008, an MIT professor, Edward Morgan, translated X-ray data from the star system GRS 1915-105. He then turned it into sound. Now the binary star system is a black hole and a star that feeds into it, and this is what it sounds like. So, kind of like a heartbeat, the beating of a deep, dark, all-consuming black heart. How romantic and seriously twisted. Okay, finally, I am pretty sure that listening to this will actually send you mad, like bonkers never be the same again mad. I was listening to this with earphones while researching this video, and I had to take them off because it sounded like there was a drill going through my brain. Coming into number 1, we have echoes from Titan. Titan is one of Saturn's moons. The sounds you're supposed to hear right now were recorded from Huygens, an atmospheric entry probe sent by the European Space Agency into a suicide landing onto the alien moon. The sounds are absolutely far out. It starts with a beating and then some interstabbing robotic sounds. Listen.
And I went off the deep end.
Ed Kemper has been serving a life sentence in this California.
Then, well, whatever this is, buzzing, brain numbing, buzzing.
At age 15. I would have killed until they gunned me down. I wouldn't have been able to reason my way out.
What do you think? Can you deal with that? Okay, this is where it gets awful. It reaches into a crescendo where you think your brain will explode.
And I did it in my society.
Seriously, stop, Titan. Stop this. Titan's kicking off. You may want to couple this sound with images taken from Titan 2. Together they're quite the intergalactic horror story.
Number 10. Space music. Sound needs a medium to travel, and thus it cannot be heard in the vacuum of space. Yet, astronauts have returned to Earth with fascinating tales of hearing odd noises while in space, which is terrifying. During the Apollo 10 mission, which was a test run for sending the first men to the moon, astronauts were carrying various equipment with them, which was being tested to withstand space as they were deemed essential for the moon landing. While circling the moon, the astronauts on the vessel heard a certain whistling sort of music. The music lasted for almost an hour and creeped the living daylights out of the astronauts. One of them described the sound as a sort of otherworldly music. On returning to Earth, the astronauts struggled for a while on whether or not to tell NASA and the rest of the world about what they experienced. Later, astronaut Michael Collins, who was also a part of the Apollo 11 mission with Aldrin and Armstrong, revealed hearing similar music while on the moon's surface. An engineer from the US Space Agency said the noises likely came from interference caused by radios within the lunar and command modules. However, Al Worden, an astronaut on Apollo 15, disputed the explanation. Number 9. Noise in the stratosphere. In 2023, strange sounds that were recorded high in Earth's atmosphere have scientists baffled. A solar-powered balloon mission detected a repeating infrasound noise in the stratosphere, and scientists don't know what's making it. The solar-powered balloon mission, launched by researchers from Sandia National Laboratories, carried out a microphone to the region of Earth's atmosphere found around 31 miles above the planet called the stratosphere. This region is relatively calm and free of storms, turbulence, and commercial air traffic, meaning microphones in this layer of the atmosphere can eavesdrop on the sound of our planet, both natural and human-made. However, the microphone in this particular study also heard strange sounds that repeat a few times per hour. Their source has yet to be identified. The sounds were recorded in the infrasound range, meaning they were at frequencies of 20 Hz and lower, well before the range of a human ear. There are mysterious infrasound signals that occur a few times per hour on some flights, but the source of these is completely unknown, Daniel Bowman of Sedena National Laboratories said in a statement. Number 8. Skyquakes. I didn't even know that skyquakes were a thing, so for those of you who don't know, skyquakes are mysterious booms from the sky but are not thunder, and they are heard all over the world. These mysterious booms sound like cannon fire rumbling down from the sky. They are commonly heard near water, occasionally rattling windows and plates. Now, some have been explained by military aircraft breaking the sound barrier, but that doesn't account for the reports of skyquakes heard as far back as 1824. Now, scientists have come up with a few likely causes. Near coast, the booms may be caused by enormous waves crashing against the cliffs. Sand dunes are also capable, through unexplained mechanisms, of producing sounds, including, on rare occasions, large booms. Other options are meteors generating sonic booms as they speed into the atmosphere, shockwaves caused by coronal mass ejections from the sun smashing into Earth's magnetic field, distant volcano eruptions, far-off thunder redirected through the upper atmosphere, deep earthquakes making noises by cracking the crust, and gas belching up from the underground vents beneath the ocean or lake beds. But the fact that it could literally be so many things without a definite answer is freaky. Number 7. The upsweep. The upsweep is composed of a long train of sounds that sweeps repeatedly upwards like an unearthly howl from low to high frequency. It was first detected in the Pacific Ocean in 1991 by the autonomous hydrophone arrays of the UN National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA. Interestingly, it changes throughout the year, peaking in spring and autumn, although scientists are unsure whether this is due to changes in the source or changes in the environment the sound travels through. The upsweep has a plausible but unconfirmed explanation: undersea volcanoes. It's thought the sound may result from hot lava pouring into cold seawater. Though it can still be detected, the level of the upsweep has been slowly declining since its initial discovery. Number 6. La Llorona whale. The legend of the La Llorona has a wide variety of details and versions. In a typical version of the legend, a beautiful woman named Maria marries a rich man to whom she bears 2 children. One day, Maria sees her husband with another woman, and in a fit of blind rage, she drowns their offspring in a river, which she immediately regrets. Unable to save them and consumed by guilt, she drowns herself as well, but is unable to enter the afterlife, forced to be in purgatory and roam this earth until she finds her offspring. Now, the legend is deeply rooted in Mexican popular culture and is told to encourage people not to wander off in the dark and near bodies of water, such as rivers and lakes alone. It's said that if you hear her cries being distant, it means she's close, and if they seem close, that she's far. She usually has a loud cry, kind of like a coyote or owl. Stories of a weeping lady going around the streets of Mexico City were being reported more than a decade before the Spaniards arrived in the Valley of Mexico in 1519. Now, people have posted videos online of them them hearing what they believe to be her cries. Is it her or something more sinister? Either way, I am scared. Number 5. Colossi of Memnon. The Colossi of Memnon is on the west bank of Luxor, are 17 meters high and cut from 2 massive granite blocks. Many of these sounds have been heard for decades or even centuries, but let's go back millennia to this strange case of the singing Egyptian monument. West of the river Nile, 2 massive twin stone statues stand proudly. Called the Colossi of Memnon, they are a tribute to a pharaoh. In 27 BC, a large earthquake shattered part of one of the colossal statues, cracking the lower section and collapsing the top. Soon people began to notice something strange as the statue started to sing. The sound usually came at dawn and was primarily reported in February or March. To Greek historian and geographer Strabo, it sounded like a blow, while Greek traveler and geographer Pausanias compared it to the string of a lyre breaking. Scientists today speculate the sound was caused by the rise in heat and humidity in the ruins of the stone as the sun rose. But they can't check their theory because although the statues are still around, the sound is not. In about 199 CE, Roman Empire Septimus Severus ordered the repair of the earthquake damage and the singing disappeared. Number 4. Forest Grove Sound. In February 2016, a high-pitched noise was heard intermittently at night in Forest Grove, Oregon. The Department of Forestry determined that their equipment was not a cause of the sound. The Washington Post described the sound sounding like a giant flute playing off-pitch, car brakes, or a steam whistle. NBC News described it as akin to a bad one-note violin solo broadcast over a microphone with non-stop feedback. It reportedly lasted from 10 seconds to several minutes at a time. The noise occurred near the Gales Creek Road. Neither the City of Forest Grove Public Works Department nor the fire department were able to explain the noise. According to NW Natural, there were no problems with gas lines in Forest Grove at the time. In February 2018, Andrew Dawes, a professor of physics at Pacific University, mapped the locations where the noise had been heard, although the results were inconclusive and did not suggest any single location. Throughout February 2016, approximately 200 calls were made to the Forest Grove Police Department, according to Captain Mike Herb, who said that most of the calls were suggesting explanations for the sound, ranging from frogs to aliens to Bigfoot. In late February 2016, the Forest Grove Police Department announced via Facebook that the noise did not pose a safety hazard, and the police announced that they were halting their investigation until further information appeared. However, after February 2016, the noise was not heard again. Number 3. The Ping. Furry and Helka Strait is a narrow 1.2 to 12.4 miles wide Arctic seawater channel located in Nunavut, Canada. This strait is the site of an unexplained phenomenon called the Ping, alternately described as a hum or beep heard throughout the summer of 2016. It was heard by various residents of the town in Igloolik, and local hunters blamed it for a comparative secrecy of marine game animals that year. The noises emanating from the sea floor, and this concerned a lot of people. The Department of National Defense has been informed of the strange noises emanating from the area, and the Canadian Armed Forces are taking appropriate steps to actively investigate the situation, a spokesperson wrote in a statement. Canadian military authorities performed an airborne survey of the area but reported nothing unusual, nor did they have any knowledge of Allied or foreign submarine activity in the area. So it is still unknown what it was. Number 2. Bloop. Bloop is the big kahuna in unexplained sounds. In 1997, an extremely powerful, ultra-low frequency sound was detected at various listening stations thousands of miles apart and traced to somewhere west of the southern tip of South America. The sound only lasted about a minute and was heard repeatedly over that summer, but has not been heard since. Bloop is generally believed to be the sound of a massive ice quake, but scientists haven't totally ruled out the possibility that the sound originated from something organic. That's where things get scary, as if an animal was the source of bloop, it would have to be larger than a blue whale. Now, the most interesting of all theories stems from the fact that bloop's location is somewhere close to author H.P. Lovecraft's fictional sunken city, Rayla, where the creature known as Cthulhu lies dead but dreaming. Cthulhu can be best described as part man, dragon, and octopus, which seems as likely a source as any for the ocean's greatest auroral anomaly. And coming in at number 1 is the hum. A constant low frequency sound has been plaguing people around the world since at least the 1960s, from Canada to New Mexico, Scotland to New Zealand. Most you hear it say it sounds like a truck engine idling, and earplugs don't help block it out. Called the hum, it is so well documented that there's actually statistics about it. It can only be heard about 2% of the population, often, it is generally present indoors, it becomes louder at night, it is heard more often in rural and suburban areas, and it tends to be heard by middle-aged people. Now, some doubt the hum is even a physical sound, as in a fraction of cases it might be the result of psychology, with people focusing too hard on ambient noise. But for most, the hum appears to be very real. Many obvious sources have been ruled out, such as highway noise, industrial equipment, the electricity grid, and phone towers. Other theories of varying plausibility have been suggested, such as earth tremors, mating fish, power or gas lines, tunneling under the earth, wireless communication devices, and the OG, of course, aliens. A study by geoscientist David Deming of the University of Nebraska suggests the hum may actually be a result of very low frequency (VLF) radio transmissions used by military powers. Other research suggests the hum comes from natural terrestrial or geological phenomena. It is a well-studied fact that animals seem to be able to predict earthquakes, so perhaps some humans have the same mechanism. Either way, it is strange.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Secret App. At one point or another, we all got the Secret Vault app on our phones, you know, the one that's designed to look like another app, like a calculator or something like that. It's in case anybody goes through your phone. You can hide your memes or MSN passwords or nudies, whatever you want, all in this app. It just says Vault on it too. You're like, okay, well, this is obviously the one. But how secure is that app to begin with? Who's making that? Who's on the other end? Back in June in Australia, hundreds of criminals were arrested after a 3-year operation was complete. The FBI have been trying to crack this case for a while now, obviously 3 years. These cell phones that come from the black market basically have this calculator app that is secretly a platform for criminals to message each other safely. You up? Heist? Question mark? Rose emoji? Shipments, trafficking weapons, contracts, just horrible stuff with horrible people, but the FBI was able to intercept over 20 million messages in over 45 different languages. That's a lot. Operation Trojan Shield. Yeah, you might want to go delete those old pics in that free Vault app you got 10 years ago. Yeah, you never know. Go take a look. You might still have it. Right next to Jellycar. Delete both. Number 9, Governor Rod Blagojevich. Back in October 2008, an FBI investigation towards Governor Rod Blagojevich had began. It all began when one of the governor's associates tipped off the FBI that Rod was promising official favors in exchange of campaign or personal funds. Yeah, that's a no-go in the world of an Illinois governor. You can't do that. So the FBI tapped his office and started recording his phone calls. They recorded him for 7 weeks, and after that point, they had more than enough evidence to arrest him come December 2008. Of course, he was also impeached. Recordings didn't sound great as well. There was lots of profanity, lots of talk about this new job as governor and all these bribes that he could now maintain in the future. Rod Blagojevich was convicted of 18 counts of felony corruption by time 2011 rolled around, including soliciting bribes, attempted extortion, wire fraud, just a plethora of horrible stuff. He was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison, and on top of that, he had to pay fines of up to $21,000. Number 8, Nixon's wiretaps. It wouldn't be shocking if you've heard of the Nixon Watergate hotel scandal. It's pretty massive, history-wise. But if you forget, the Watergate scandal was what led to Nixon resigning in 1974. Back in June 1972, numerous burglars were caught attempting to break into the offices of the Democratic National Committee at the Watergate Hotel in Washington. They were breaking in with the intent to plant bugs. Little mics, not bugs. Although that would be horrible too. There's a bunch of bugs around. Like, where are all these ants come from? Several people involved were connected to Nixon's re-election committee. Nixon denied as best as he could, obviously, reminding us that he's not a crook, famous not a crook line, although we had over 3,500 hours of secretly recorded conversation. Now, there's one 18-minute gap in these tapes. That's what's so compelling still to this day. Maybe he was farting that entire time. You never know. Number 7, Mayor Marion Barry. When the FBI secretly records you, be it video, audio, whatever the case, you're gonna be pretty upset when you eventually find out. No, I would assume I'd be upset. Nixon had all of our phone calls saved. I'd be like, why? What? I was ranting. It's personal. This is private. Back in 1990, the late Marion Barry, who was once mayor of Washington, was being recorded by the FBI and DC police while he was in his hotel room, taking part in some illegal narcotics and such with a friend. Barry went to prison after this was all a big setup, but that still didn't stop him from becoming mayor again once he was released. So you can go to jail, do all this stuff, and bad things happen, get set up by your friend, and then come back and still be a mayor. R.I.P. Number 6, Lance Armstrong's phone calls. Not to be confused with Neil Armstrong, although this next one is truly out of this world. I had to. Lance Armstrong. Lance won the Tour de France 7 times from 1999 to 2005. Impressive, 1000%. I can't even imagine. My legs get tired walking up a hill, let alone cycling this fast and far. Oh my god. It's more than likely you've heard about some happenings with Lance, some scandals and such. In July 2004, Greg LeMond, also a Tour de France winner, he secretly recorded himself having a conversation with Stephanie McIlvaine. Stephanie overheard a conversation previously where Lance was in the hospital being treated for testicular cancer. She admitted on the phone that this is what she heard. Lance admitted to using steroids to a doctor that day. Now this is pretty meta because this is like a confession of something that was overheard in a phone call. It's literally broken telephone at this point, and Armstrong insisted this conversation with medical staff never happened to begin with. But come October 2012, the anti-doping agency confirmed Armstrong had been using throughout his career. The Tour de France then stripped him of all of his titles. Number 5, Hoover and JFK. This one goes pretty deep. Officials tapping officials. Back in the 60s, there was a file you would probably go to jail for trying to even see for yourself. Just by doing that, they'd be like, yep, you're going, see ya, go wash your eyes. This file was the FBI's official and confidential file. It was kept in the office of J. Edgar Hoover, and inside it was just a plethora of secrets. I'm talking about senators doing sketchy stuff, but one file showed that Hoover was taping phone calls with JFK. Hoover had enough dirt on everybody. That was his whole plan. And what he knew about JFK was that he was having an affair with a 25-year-old named Judith Campbell Exner, who at the time was also seeing mob boss Sam Giancana. So it's like a love triangle of like, wow, we shouldn't be doing this at all. In March 1962, Hoover told Kennedy over brunch that the FBI had tapes on him, and of course this affair. Odd that JFK didn't fire him until his death in 1972. That's a pretty odd thing. That's a loaded threat right there, to be honest. He's like, okay, I see that and I'm not going to touch it. Enjoy your mimosa. I'm not going to do anything about this. Have fun. Just one bill, please. Number 4, Linda Tripp. This next one is a real trip. I like throwing puns in. I had to. Back in 1998, Pentagon employee Linda Tripp would have phone calls with Monica Lewinsky, who of course was involved in a scandal with President Clinton. There's some things that happened there. So these conversations were probably pretty juicy, for lack of a better term. Lewinsky even caught on to these recordings at one point while they were happening, and she asked Linda on the other side what this double clicking noises that she kept hearing. She's like, what's going on? Why is there clicking? Are you chewing gum? Tripp lied to her. She was like, yep, I am chewing gum for sure. That's it. Definitely not me recording something. Meanwhile, Tripp was indeed secretly recording tapes that led to Clinton being impeached. The charges against Tripp for illegally recording were dropped. Snitches get off the hook, apparently. That's wild. Number 3, Ralph Berger. Sometimes you get caught and then the city has your back and then you almost get away with it. It's shady and scary and all lies. But that's how it works, especially if you're Ralph Berger. This attorney was under investigation and he was suspected of bribing public officials, so the police just had to listen in. They're like, oh, we have to know what's going on. They tapped Berger's calls for 2 months. Lo and behold, proof was found. Thing is, Berger had rights, so this was tricky at this point. He argued for the courts to throw out the case by arguing his 4th Amendment rights were exploited. He claimed a mistrial in order to dodge corruption charges, and it worked. New York was on his side at this point, but ultimately the Supreme Court said this was legal and you are for sure a criminal. See you later, alligator. And then New York was like, I guess, yeah, he's bad. That's a good call too, I guess. I don't know. Number 2, Paul Manafort. You never know when the Russian mob may pop up and just start listening about. Former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort was under investigation under secret court orders. The FBI obtained a warrant to listen in on Manafort's phone calls back in 2014, and then come 2016, the FBI learned about possible ties between Trump associates and Russian operatives. He was the target of these FBI wiretaps before and after Trump's campaign because under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, the government can secretly wiretap if you can convince a judge that they're possibly agents of a foreign power. So if you're ever like, I think John's cheating on me, maybe he's an agent of a foreign power, just convince somebody and then you can go through his phone. And finally, number 1, Squidgygate. This one's not so much FBI, but it's pretty juicy. Odds are you haven't heard of it. Let's do it. Lady Diana married Prince Charles on July 29th, 1981. The wedding, of course, was huge. It was televised. It was a flashy whole event. Diana was only 20 at the time. Can you imagine? 20 years old. Wow. The pair had 2 children, Prince William and Prince Harry, but rumors quickly spread about how strong the couple really was behind closed doors. Adultery was rumored on both sides. Finally, come 1996, they divorced. Diana goes on to do great charitable work, but a phone call surfacing from 1992 still has us talking. The call was between Diana and childhood friend James Gilby. During this call, which went down New Year's Eve back in 1989, James called Diana darling and squidgy, those fun little nicknames, even confessing his love for her, in case we didn't catch that with the whole squidgy nickname. Diana told them about how her husband made her feel awful and made her life just miserable, and then 2 ham radio operators just happened to overhear all of it and then record it all. And they sold the tape in 1992. Ken Worf, who was a former bodyguard of Diana, he believes the government communications headquarters played the recordings on loop until radio operators had to catch it. Then they did the deed from there. When we think of Princess Diana, this part of her dark history is often overlooked.